Hi, welcome to Rich
Hey!
Radio. I'm Reverend Rich. This is
Reverend
Reverend,
Paul.
and we have a very special guest today, Keith Horwitz, who's a reverend in the Agape ministry, which he's going to explain it to us after we do our first prayer, because this is Prayers Radio, and we are only about prayer, which is in Science of Mind, which is about Ernest Holmes. And Paul, you're supposed to say something.
An affirmative prayer.
So, Reverend Keith, if you'd pray us in, please.
Absolutely. I'm going to close my eyes, but you're welcome to keep yours opened or closed, whatever feels right and good to you. We just take a moment outside of moments, each and every one of us. We move into a benevolent state of vulnerability and availability as we open our hearts, our bodies, our emotions, our minds. In deep gratitude, knowing something wonderful is seeking to rise and shine itself. I am so grateful for this day, grateful for the sun that shines and photosynthesizes the plants and the solar panels. Oh, we know that there is one power, one presence back of all life. We may call it the universe, we may call it God. We know that it is omniamorous, all-loving, omnipotent, all-powerful, all-knowing. It is all good. We open to this goodness, this grandeur that we may call Allah or Jehovah or Yahweh or the Creator or Hashem or Choda, whatever we call it, Dios, the one, the great one. We know that it is all good, and that goodness that has never withheld anything, has never judged anything, only praises and raises, lavishes and loves. That is God's nature, life's nature. For God and life, synonymous. We open to the holy presence and remember, as stated in scriptures around the globe, in every culture, that each and every one of us formed and fashioned in the image and likeness of God, of the divine, that our essence is the very presence of eternal magnificence. We may call it the soul, the higher self, the true self. We open to that and know that all that the divine is indwells within me, within Reverend Paul, within Richard, with each and every one of us, every single person on this planet, equally endowed, equally imbued with ever-expanding good, the capacities, the abilities to feel, see, hear, know, understand the absolute truth. And the truth that only blessings are swirling and whirling and circulating throughout all of life. We transcend duality and allow singularity to overwhelm our awareness, which is simply the beginning, for the beginning is eternality. And I speak this word of blessing, blessing our time together, blessing it as a time of revelation, rejuvenation, inspiration, invigoration, and complete alignment with the divine idea of our lives, allowing it to be good, for we heal, grow, and expand in benevolent, dynamic, profound, immediate, immaculate, and glorious ways. We proclaim it so, we speak it so, we release the prayer and allow it to be good and so, and now by saying, Amen.
And so it is.
So it is.
So it is.
Damn, that was like a 7-course meal of spiritual mind treatment.
Well, Reverend Keith, or can I call you Keith?
Sure.
Okay. So Reverend Keith is over at soulcenteroc.com, and that's where he has his Sunday services. His personal site is keithhorwitz.com for our people that don't know how to spell, so that they can look him up directly. We want to make sure that people know that you have your services. I went to his services on Sunday, and then I checked out a couple of other things that it provides, and it's a dynamic community that he has there, a very, very well structured. Can I say that? Or a lot of nice people there. So it's something you should check out. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the things that you'd like to plug about your site, or anything else that you'd like to do?
Well, first and foremost, the me that is today is radically different than the me that was 25 plus years ago. Prior to what I call, I had, might even seem cliche to some regard, but I had after a culmination of stress and living through panic attacks and having anxiety and really just being part of the status quo and living from my ego primarily. Not really having, I didn't have a spiritual practice. I believed in God, but I didn't do anything about it. I was raised a mutt in a family that, a Jewish father and a Catholic mom, but we did nothing. So I had no religious real influence. We like to celebrate all the holidays. But it was really, it was pretty much crisis that brought me to the spiritual awakening. And in that crisis, I had a mystical experience where I felt the presence of God, the presence of the universe, the presence of grace and beauty. And I felt a wisdom that came with it that compelled me to transform. And it's a kind of interesting story, but that began the journey. And before that, I was working in the corporate world, and I had all kinds of suppressed trauma in my trauma body that was really diminishing my experience of life. And it was, most of it, I was completely unaware of. I had just normalized trauma in my life. And when I awoke, it was like, now the healing aspect of prayer kicked in.
Wow.
I don't know if you want more, or I could give you a little bit more about that. But
we'll get into the questions. What some of the things our audience want to know is agape. What is agape versus you have OC, you have the Centers for Spiritual Living. We've had other people on that have their own flavor of science of mind and how they work things. What is agape directly, and how does that work within the realm of science of mind teachings?
It is directly related to science of mind. Agape is birthed out of science of mind. We were once for all intents and purposes, part of Centers of Spiritual Living before it became Centers of Spiritual Living under RSI, and we were part of that. And in 2006, there was a decision made with Reverend Michael and the board just to become independent. Not to separate, not to change teachings, just to become an independent, of which, there's quite a few science of mind independent spiritual centers, which means you're just, not woven into all of the administrative aspects of CSL, which there are plenty of beautiful and glorious reasons. And then as a result, as we became independent, running our own practitioner studies program, which mirrors the practitioner studies program at CSL, and our own ministerial program, same thing, and then matriculated through the ministerial program, and basically all of a sudden became Agape as not only an independent, but now has affiliates to the Agape International Spiritual Center, but the love and the unity with CSL is very vibrant, and there really is not much difference. A couple little nuances that are different, but in essence, we're the same.
Sounds good. Let's get into our questions. Paul, go ahead and ask the first one, if you would, sir.
So Keith, what tangible results have you found through affirmative prayer, through spiritual mind treatment?
Well, I think the most rewarding aspect, because when I first started, it's an evolutionary experience. When you first start through prayer, affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment, it takes getting used to. The entirety of our journey here is to have a transformational experience. Most people didn't get that memo when they were born, that you came here to, I always like to use the word bevolve. You benevolently are evolving. A lot of people are devolving over the course of life. And so to bevolve, or to evolve into who you truly are, you want to follow a practice and principles. And in our principles and practices, affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment is prayer. Really, that's what it is. It's prayer, but it's been broken down where the forefathers and foremothers of our movement, whether it be Mary Baker Eddy or Ernest Holmes or the Quimbys, they were like, I want to know, how does all of this work? what is Christ consciousness? How does that work? What is the nature of miraculous living? And so they do like what I do is I bring it all into my spiritual laboratory. Our life is our laboratory. And so as you move into affirmative prayer, you're basically saying, this is the ideal that I'm after. And how am I going to be able to achieve that ideal? Now, I'm going to also have to qualify a little bit too. Ideal would be the divine idea, the highest, greatest, grandest vision and version of whatever it is that is seeking to rise and shine through us. Whether that's a relationship, whether that's my prosperity or career, whether that's my body temple. What is the ideal? And then you bring in, through spiritual mind treatment or affirmative prayer, a process that allows you to move into an acceptance, a revelation, a realization of that. And it is a feeling tone, and it is a vibration, and it's something that you really want to know. So for me, I started out with affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment, kind of awkward. It was a little clumsy at first, and I was a little preoccupied with manifesting certain things or having demonstrations of certain things. But I'm pretty close to finishing my first book on prayer. And just real quickly, one of the things that I noticed is that there are what I've put down as 4 levels, 4 stages of prayer. Level 1 is a beseeching prayer, which many people, when you're in a beseeching state of prayer, oftentimes that's the most where God is outside of me. It's a separate entity. I'm usually, people when they're beseeching are in a state of crisis. And so they're like, begging, like, please help me, please pay my rent, or whatever that may be. On the low end of beseeching, it is infused with doubt and worry. And as you become aware of the vibrational frequencies of doubt and worry, how that diminishes the actual what you're after. On the high end of beseeching, it's like I'm asking for help. And that's actually a really good thing. There's going to be times in life where we're going to ask for help. That opens the door. But as we rise up to stage 2 of prayer, affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, we're moving from beseeching into manifesting. And a lot of people, are like, oh, the law of attraction, and I'm going to manifest things. At the low end of the law of attraction, or the low end of manifesting, it's really being choreographed or orchestrated by my ego. I'm trying to connect with wants. And to me, I'm going to say that the word want is I want this, that's more associated with my ego, versus capital D desire, which is my soul. My soul, which that energy is connected with the law of emergence, which is what's seeking to emerge from me, from my whole, full, soulful self, from the divine. So on the low end of manifesting, it can be very ego-driven, and I might be more set on just saying things from my temporal mind, where I'm just like affirming, I am prosperous, which does reflect a principle, but it doesn't carry the juice. And I want to get into a vibratory frequency, and the law of attraction is all about frequency. So on the high end of law of attraction or manifesting, I'm starting to align more, letting go of wants and moving into desire. So I definitely went through that, and I had some pretty good demonstrations from more of a like, I'm going to pound the drum of affirming something. But then you move from beseeching to manifesting to allowing, where now there's this divine idea that I'm becoming aware of, and I'm going to allow it to happen through me, as me. I'm going to allow this divine idea. My ego is not really influencing what I'm proclaiming or intending, or I'm just allowing desire to fulfill itself. So the desire is coming in, I align my intention with the desire, and now I'm in more of an allowing. It's a higher vibrational frequency of prayer. And then the ultimate is the, and on the low end of that, you're going to experience more of like, there might be some doubt. Maybe I'm in the vibrational frequency, I'm doing the prayer, then I leave the prayer and I go back out into the world, and maybe a little doubt creeps in, like, oh, I don't know. On the high end of allowing, you're confident, you're faithful, you've actually touched the hem of the garment of the answered prayer, where you can already feel, as we say in our community, as it is done in the mind of God, it is done. And so you can feel that, and there is no wavering in it. You're just confident. And it's like from point A, the divine idea, to speaking my word to its fulfillment is just seamless. And then, of course, the final stage would be moving into a place of living prayer. I am just living it. It just flows through me. I don't even need to intend. I just allow the divine idea at such a level that it is thy will be done. And we also are very clear that thy will and my will are the same thing. The my will we're talking about is the desires of the soul, which is different, again, than the wants of the ego. So as I started to matriculate through, in the beginning stages, I was more about like manifesting certain things. And then as the energy starts to, through osmosis to some degree, starts to recalibrate your beingness, you move into it and it's like, so some of the things that I manifested, so to speak, there was a car that like, I just didn't know how that was going to happen, and boom, and I used to be somebody who would say, I always get great parking spaces, like always right up front, and it was like 99% of the time that was the case. And it's like, that was really about manifesting and using belief to really work on my behalf. But I remember I had an epiphany one day, and it's like, well, how about instead of my idea that this is the perfect parking space, it has to be in the front, right by the door, et cetera, that I just allow it to be just the perfect space wherever it is. And I remember it was very clear one day where it was like, I had decided, because this is what prompted that, I had decided that I wanted to get more walking in, more exercise. And so one day I pulled into a parking lot and I couldn't find a space. It was a lot further away. It's like, hey, what's wrong with my manifesting skills? I park up front. I'm a great manifester. And it was like, oh, well, now two wants had collided. The belief and the idea that I get these perfect parking spaces. Oh, but I want more exercise. But I wasn't actually doing anything about the exercise. And so it's like, oh, parking over here affords you to walk more, which gets you more exercise. And it was like, oh, so the universe is always, you can't trick the universe. It knows how to read your energy, and it's going to answer accordingly. So then I was like, so whatever is the best space is fine with me, whether it's close or far, something wonderful is going to take place. But probably my most, as I've evolved, and again, our prayer practice, if there's anybody out there, practitioner, minister, anybody at all, that thinks like once you learn the steps of affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, like, okay, I got it, I'm done. Like, oh no. It is going to grow you, expand you, take you to the next level. It is going to inspire you, bring forward insight. And so the most poignant thing was and this would be, you can kind of bounce between a couple levels. Maybe one day I'm kind of more of a beseeching and another day I'm more of it in the allowing, whatever it is. But I walked into a situation, something I had been invited to that I didn't really know anything about. It was a special gathering with special people for a particular reason in a particular group. And I got invited, and I remember walking through the doors, and I was like, I felt the desire for the prayer and the answer at the prayer at the exact same time. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even pray this. I felt the oneness and the unity together. And I was like, now that's really thy will be done. That's that high form. And I was like, and that was just telling me that, something magnificent is taking place, and it just compels you to go deeper and higher.
Well, I'll tell you, you've answered a bunch of the questions that we're normally going to ask. That's why we give the list ahead. But I'd like to, go through some of the other questions that you may not have answered yet, and then I'll just Paul and I will tag team on some of the items. But one of the things that our listeners like to know is, you've already talked about how you stay grounded in prayer, but how does Reverend Keith wake up in the morning and say, this is my day, or how do you do this
How do
for
you start the
yourself?
day?
Yeah, how do you start the day?
Well, thankfully, I've surrendered to these natural circadian rhythms, where I basically wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I go into meditation and prayer. I always like to have a spacious morning filled with, timelessness. Um, I used to be a little bit more intentional, but now I am more revelational, where I allow the intentions to reveal them, the desires to
Mm,
reveal themselves to me. It's kind of like the difference between visioning and visualizing.
Mm,
Visualizing, I'm making myself see, the car or the house or the whatever. Visioning, I'm allowing spirit, my soul, to show to me. So I'll allow myself to sit in that kind of a meditative experience and allow the quote unquote marching orders, so to speak, and really surrender to that. Every part of, I have a prayer partner. We pray every day. I have a sacred circle where we come together every week. Prayer is, ceaseless prayer, which is the thing that enamored me when I walked into
mm,
Agape, um, has just continued to grow. And the thing I like most about science of mind, the thing I like most about New Thought and affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment is it takes you out of, like, if you've ever heard somebody say, like, oh, my ADHD, or oh, my whatever acronym they have, and they're kind of owning a particular
mm.
diagnosis or phenomenon. And I don't want to make that wrong or bad, but it doesn't exactly behoove you. And so as you start to speak and learn affirmative prayer, and spiritual mind treatment, you start to change the way you speak. You start to change the way you think.
Think.
And you're going to start interrupting things. And for a while, it's kind of like, ooh. And I always called it my Homer Simpson moment, where I'd catch myself saying something and go, nope, like, and it's like, nope. And then you requalify it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
it takes a little getting used to, but now I've gone from kind of monitoring what I'm saying to an eloquence that comes through, where everything you're going to end up saying is going to be part of that prayer. So,
Mm.
and the rest of the principles, being very mindful of other people and being of service. And so just throughout the day, really allowing a prayerful awareness, because prayer moves from being a practice to just a way of life. It's
Life.
just
All right.
I'm the living prayer.
So it
Hey, can
sounds like
you?
the you've actually covered the part where when you're triggered, how you actually use it in practice. Why
Oh,
don't.
I'll give you a really good triggered story, because I used to get triggered all the time. So, but I had set an intention that I wanted to have really profound, beautiful, nurturing, loving, close relationships with people. I've never been a real fan of small talk, where you just jibber
Mm,
jabber about, current events and the weather and all that. So I was sitting there and I was like, yes, this is what I'm after. I'm after deep, intimate. And so I was at Agape one day, and I saw, well, so I'm going to have to merge these two. I saw a woman walk in the parking lot, and she was about 100 feet away from another woman, and they saw each other, they recognized each other, and they started running towards each other. And I'm just watching it, and I'm
mm,
seeing them kind of like as though they're in slow motion, and then they hug, and they're so happy to see each other. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want
mm.
that, like, real deep connection, and where you just feel when you're sitting with people. So a little while later, a few days later, I was at the Whole Foods. I was in the parking lot. I'd got some things. I was coming out to my car. And I get in the car, and when I open my door hits the car next to me, which is a brand new black Mercedes, and I was in my car that was white. And I closed my door. Unbeknownst to me, I did not know that the gentleman who owned that car was in the car, and he
Ouch.
heard the bang. And I looked, and I didn't see any damage. So I closed my door, and I'm getting ready to go. And then all of a sudden, this man comes out in a rage, and he's pounding on my windshield, and it startled me, and the adrenaline and the fight or flight response started to come up. But I had set an intention, and this is where being proactive with your intentions really pays off. I had set an intention that no matter what is going on in my life, if something bad happens, I'm going to immediately try to go right to what's good about all this. So I felt the adrenaline, and this guy was just fuming mad, and it was very disproportionate to what had happened. And so I felt all of a sudden like a prayer just start to happen through me that started to bring me out of that adrenaline rush and that fight or flight, and like, hey, yeah, you, and I'm gonna like fight back. And that reactionary response, which would have been to like, what, you're crazy, started to just go, and it was being replaced. And it probably took over maybe 20 seconds for that to happen. It was very timeless. And so I rolled down the window, and all of a sudden, instead of seeing an angry man, I saw a very young boy. I saw somebody who had not been heard, wasn't being listened, was left out of things. I just saw somebody, and the compassion rose. And I knew that what had happened had nothing to do with the bump of the door, because nothing had happened really. I knew it was a trigger to something way bigger. And so I wanted to do, as Howard Thurman would say, I want to be for someone what they need at the moment they need it. And so I dropped into that place. It was mystical and magnificent. And he kept saying to me, and you're an a-hole, and you're this. And he was calling me all these names as he was yelling at me. And in nanoseconds, I was like, oh, because it didn't really apply there. But I had experience. I remembered in nanoseconds, there were times when I was those behaviors earlier in life. And so I turned to him, and I just looked at him in the eyes, and I rolled down my window all the way, and I said, you know what, sir? You're right. And I am really sorry. And I did not mean to do that. And I really apologize. Now, there were people watching, and they were kind of like, if we went into a court of law, he would have been like, everybody would have said, you're crazy and this is disproportionate. But it didn't matter. I wanted to establish closer relationships. All of a sudden, when I did that, the man went like, oh, okay. And he just totally came down and felt heard and seen and appreciated. And it was sincere. I wasn't doing the polite, let me placate you. It was real. And I just felt like, oh my God, that is delicious. Delicious, where all of a sudden that trigger just dissipated and turned into a compassion where we weren't at odds with each other. And that was it was a beautiful experience.
So we're at the 3-minute mark.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to need to shotgun some questions here to make sure that we get those
quick.
questions in. Paul, would you like to shotgun some of the ones that are at the bottom of the list, if you would?
Yeah, actually, I want to shotgun. Can you bring us through your steps of prayer? Because it's pretty powerful when I saw you on the video.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So traditionally, I'm assuming it's still the same at CSL, there's the 5 steps of prayer.
Right,
we
5.
at Agape, and so we add on the front of the prayer gratitude. Gratitude is an energy that opens your heart. And gratitude is different than Thanksgiving in that. Gratitude is things that have happened that I'm grateful for now. I'm grateful for my home, or I'm grateful for, and it opens your heart, and energetically it's priming you to move into what was traditionally the first step, but is now our second step, which is recognizing God. And recognizing God is something where you want to make that real and personal and own it. Like, how do you experience the divine, and however you call the higher power, making it intimate and real? And so gratitude opens it up. It makes it easier when you're creating coherence with gratitude between your mind and your heart. And so then it makes it easier to be like, to be in awe of the divine and start the journey, which is what affirmative prayer and spiritual mind treatment is doing, where then I move into unification, where I am realizing I am one with the one. I am not separate. There's no man in the clouds that may or may not grant me my petition. I am one with the one. And then when you start feeling your oneness, which is intimate and delicious, and so you have to describe it, but you're not describing it from an intellectual, maybe at
From the
first,
heart, right?
but you want to move into like, let your heart tell you what that means. And then moving into realization, and this is the part in affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment, especially in a 5 or 6 step, where if there's a condition, I'm going to speak the truth about prosperity or wellness. Different forms of affirmative prayer would leave that out in like a evocation or a benediction. But when I'm speaking about, I want to really address something. So I'm going to realize the truth. So for example, prosperity, the universe never withholds anything. Some people have this misunderstanding that maybe God is saying like, no, that's not for you. No, the universe is always giving, always vibrating at yes, never withholding. So if I'm realizing that truth, it means I will accept it. I will know it from not only a belief, but from knowingness. And then when I move into thanksgiving, now towards the end of the prayer, the thanksgiving, the differentiation between gratitude and thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is I'm connecting with where it is already done, the spiritual principle, the spiritual idea, where it's done in the mind of God, in the brilliance of the eternal truth. And I can feel where it's already done, but it hasn't matriculated into space and time yet, but I can feel where it's done. And so I'm grateful in advance. I'm grateful in advance for what is already done in the mind of God. And then the law of growth kicks in and it allows it to come into form. So this really is a synthesis of efficiency. And then, of course, we release the prayer because it is not us that is going to force or effort to make any of this happen. It's the law of creation that is going to bring it forward. So we release it with confidence and faith to allow it to return to us fulfilled. So that's basically the quick synopsis of that.
So, Paul, do you want to ask one more question, or do you just want to do the closing part?
Let's do the closing part, but I would love to have you back on here to keep going with this.
Yeah, but
yeah,
let's,
this felt like 3 minutes.
I know. Well, what would you want our audience to take away from this talk right now?
Really, that right now, wherever you are, no matter what's going on, if you're experiencing a crisis or you're experiencing joy, because false positives are where I feel happy because I have this and I have that, and a false positive is where, if I have this money, then I'm happy, but if I don't, I'm not. So some people are living in a false positive reality. Some people are living in crisis. Some people are living in a more genuine. But I'm going to just say, really, wherever you are, you want to participate in having a direct experience of the divine as your life. And it doesn't matter where you are, what's going on. You can start wherever you are and allow these principles. That's one thing we didn't really get to, because the laws and the principles that govern this is what really makes it so delicious, and it makes it where it becomes tangible. So that's what everybody wants. They want it to be relatable, tangible, real in their experience. So I would just say, explore and let it be fun. Let it be a loving, benevolent, beautiful. I always, every day on my daily affirmative prayer that I do live, I always say, we heal, grow, and expand in benevolent, dynamic, profound, immediate, immaculate, efficient, and glorious ways. That's an intention, because I went through where I healed, grew, and expanded in arduous, hard, awful ways. And it's like, you know what? There's a better way to do it. So that's what I would like people to explore.
We'll make sure we plug your site. We plugged your personal site, keithhorwitz.com, in the beginning of the show. And then his center is soulcenteroc.com. I really suggest you come and check it out. And he has a lot of different activities that are going on right now, and you want to check that out. And what's really wonderful about it is that, you talk the talk, you walk the walk. I saw your center. I saw how you presented it. It was fantastic. And he usually has a pre-meditation every Sunday. So you might want to check it out because it was really cool. I'm Reverend Rich of Prayers Radio. This is Reverend
Reverend Paul, I am spiritalive.com.
And would you pray us out, Reverend Keith? That would be great.
Absolutely. Oh, I'm just grateful for this time, grateful to know that there are millions of like-minded individuals that are simply saying yes to the sublime divine, knowing that each and every one of us, as we open our hearts, our bodies, our emotions, our minds, remembers the truth that there is one omniamorous, all-loving power and presence that seeks nothing less than to radiate bliss. Bliss is life's nature. Bliss is God's nature. Therefore, it is our nature. We open to the indwelling presence and imagine and remember the great truth that I am as thou art as I am. Wherever I am, infinite brilliance is. And so I'm grateful for this time that we've shared. Grateful to know something magnificent has been ignited. A contagion of good is seeking to inspire, to motivate, enthusiate, to grow and glow, and lift us to the next level of ever-expanding good. And it's from a place of deep thanksgiving that we simply agree to allow it to be by saying, and so it is.
So it is. Remember to visit our sites, donate, keep the thing going, and again, subscribe to the specific channel that you're on right now. And remember, if you don't say a prayer, you don't got a prayer. Everybody say bye.
All right, thank you, Keith.
You're welcome.